Hello, 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 I think. And welcome to another One Line of Code. I am One Lion. We still have a fire going on here. How do we still have a fire going on? We don't want a fire. Let's get rid of this fire. First of all, let me just make sure that everything is in place. Everything is set up. Here is my Visual Studio. It goes over on this screen. But hi, DC Aggie. Hi, Dukasoft. I hope you are both well, having a fantastic morning so far, or day, whatever time it happens to be for you. Oh, my arm. A little tired. Oh, man. Okay. We know that we're projecting the right screen now. So yeah, I found out that if I ever do disconnect a monitor or like add a monitor or a display device, then OBS will just flip out and choose whichever random one. Yeah, exactly, Dukasoft. So I was able to nudge it, coax it, get it to be the right monitor, or the monitor that I had been using lately. MojoBot's here. We got two non-bot bots in the stream. Hope you're doing amazing. Might have turned the music down a little bit too much, but doesn't really matter. So I was going to update our AI generated image to be, or not to be, maybe one of these more recent pictures of a new checkpoint merge that I was trying out that I thought was pretty decent. It generated some cool pictures. Oh, come on. I have to wait for it to create the thumbnails for these. So let's start with our door. Nope, we're starting with our character. The character is still trying to generate the thumbnail. While I'm waiting, I'm going to look over on this screen to find out where we are, what's going to be going on today. But yeah, for those of you that have never been here before, which I'm not sure if any of you are in that category, but we will be working on the stream project called the Financial Management Tracker. Why isn't it refreshing the images? There it goes. Tugasoft says I'm new here. And this project is to show full stack Blazor web development in as a workflow. What am I trying to say? The full workflow of a full stack Blazor web developer. Blazor developer? Because we're doing more than just the web part of it. I mean, it looks like we're only working on the web part of it, but while we're creating this API with endpoints that call services on the server, we're also doing it for the desktop mobile versions of the app, as well as also. Okay, well, none of those are going to give me a thumbnail, so we're just going to use one of the randomly generated AI images from a million, billion, trillion years ago. Oh, yeah. Oh, these are great. I think I used this one before, but I love it so much. What is Blazor? Full stack? Like pancakes? Exactly. I love this little cup. Okay, so what kind of door does this little cup want to go through? Not this burning one. The burning cup is bad. I mean, the burning door is bad. Cup wants to go through a door. Are we even going to use a door? Are we even going to be able to use any image? I'm just going to put this one up. Forget about it. I mean, kinda. I'm gonna see what happens if I do this. Nothing good. It looks kind of bit. Anyway, I kind of like that. I like being over the little fairy pond. Good stuff. Anyway, to the desktop. Hello, desktop. So I already moved everything to the correct sides this time before the stream, so we didn't have to rearrange everything. And we got angry little cup up there. Kind of looks like it belongs in Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I wonder if that's where it got some of the inspiration. But I'm still stuck in web forms hell, but at least I'm trying out Model View Presenter with it. Cool. Did you ever get a good response to the question that you posted a few days ago? I'm trying to open up Discord. I don't remember where you posted it. I don't remember where you posted it so I could look up what the actual question was. Oh man, I'm so bad at this. It was a really good question, and like I said on Monday, I was going to respond to it, but I was trying to read through the responses that you already got to kind of provide more information about things that they hadn't said. And then I started talking about it on Monday, then I distracted myself and never actually responded the way that I wanted to respond. Non-code help. Okay. Let me look at the question. Okay, so here is the actual question with some of Live Coding's response, which is, it appears there may be an unwritten, likely very old rule at my work that all calls to our Oracle database must be done through stored procedures. Okay, I'm kind of remembering. This was a common mentality a million billion years ago. That's how you read this syntax. But in the age of ORMs and the world of .NET, it feels pretty antiquated. It's already a bit of a pain. Yes, I'm lazy, but me too. To work with the Oracle C# versus SQL Server. To work with Oracle from C# versus SQL Server, but using calls to Oracle procs, stored procs, adds even more jank and limits both features and convenience of tools like ORMs. Now I have to spend time prepping an argument for using table access, and if I fail to win that argument, I'll need to move or duplicate logic into Oracle packages, procedures, and slow down my project development. Anyone know of a good starting point prepping my argument? Okay, so then Live Coding did respond to you with this whole concept of finding a programmatic way to maintain all of your code. Drops the DB. Zulius did have that kind of, upfront, if you do SQL, then you could do drop database XYZ. But I don't think that that's descriptive enough for you to be able to say why use an ORM with table access versus stored procedures to do stuff. And honestly, depending on your team, it might make sense to still maintain your stored procedures. But that would mean that your database administrator should know about the logic, the business logic that is needed to maintain data in the tables. Because I don't remember if we talked about this or not, or looked it up, but I need to look it up now. There might be a provider for Oracle, and if not, then you could just use SQL Client, I think, for Entity Framework. Oracle with Entity Framework Core. There's at least a package, and I don't know who is releasing this. I don't recognize. Oh, from Oracle directly. All right. So Oracle have published a package that works with Entity Framework. We don't have that kind of DBA. They do infrastructure, but don't build stored procedures or know anything about the app. So yeah, if it's up to the developer to write and maintain the logic and the stored procedures are not reused, or you you have a way to make the stored procedure logic reusable using your database library or repository is what it most likely would end up being. A class library that has all of your business logic for interacting with the database that you can just pop into any other app that uses the same database and logic. So given that, your argument could be, well, not yet, not yet. No argument yet. This is still in favor of using stored procedures. So using Entity Framework, because they have an Oracle provider for it, that means that you should have full access to Entity Framework's built-in repository, essentially, the thing that allows you to access tables as well as do CRUD operations. Oh, I didn't know about that, Tyron. So Tyron is asking, asking that EF Core now or will soon support stored procedures to do data access. So the whole thing that you can do with Entity Framework, though, is you can create any kind of link up between a stored procedure and your ORM. So you could still have stored procedures in the database. You'd still have to work on debugging any of the logic using your typical workflow for debugging stored procedures, which I think is a million times more difficult than just having C# code that has all of your database stuff. But I digress. And we'll get to that as an argument. But you'd be able to have your database library. And what I would recommend doing is inside of your database context, wherever you have that, you could have all of your stored procedures, where your stored procedure is just going to be, and it would be probably a static void. No, we could do it. We could do it off of the DB context, but oh, you use Dapper, and it works with Oracle procedures, but not all features work with it, and it's so much extra C#. Yeah, this would have a little bit extra overhead as far as, oh, yeah. So like, let's say that you had a stored procedure that was used to update a record and return the ID of the record that it updated. And it's called, I don't know, update manufacturer product code. And then you pass to it some entity from your database. And let's just say that you have a manufacturer code entity. I don't know. Manufacturer code. Or you can just pass in the values, I guess. This could have the exact same signature as the stored procedure even. So it could be something like int min id string product code. I don't know. I'm not good with coming up with concrete examples. So then you would be able to use your context dot set of, oh, right, except returning it as an int is kind of hard. Let's say that it returns a manufacturer code. And the name of the stored procedure in here. Exec update manufacturer product code at man ID at product code. And then you would create your parameters. And I think you can just use the basic thing. Yeah. And then you just pass in those two things. So anyway, the point is that you would be able to you would be able to bind to any object type. The problem is that the object type that you want to get the values for from a stored procedure or some random SQL must also be defined in your entity, in your context. So I would have other things that are not tables. So like if I had views in here, then even though those views are not actually part of the database object, the database context, I will be turning some response from the database into that type of object. Manufacture product or whatever I called it. Manufacture products. I like that. Get set equals default. So from your standpoint, DC Aggie, this is a lot of work for just trying to hook up an ORM, in this case, entity framework, to stored procedures. Concrete example, mix concrete, mix with water. And then you get hard facts. Solid, for sure. Anyway, so you would still need to configure that. So for example, you would have model builder dot entity of manufacturer, which of course this object doesn't exist anywhere. Product code query. Then you would do query dot to view, even though there is no view, it's fine. But you would still put something in here like that to configure it. What are you doing? Oh, because I usually use curly braces. Well, and then you would also need to configure query has no key. So I was just showing you this entire process so you can get a feel for, is this more work to add this to something like entity framework, which again, you're using Dapper. I don't really know how Dapper works. Do you have some sort of context, or do you just do this same sort of setup SQL parameters and then use raw SQL using those parameters? Um, but yeah, so in Entity Framework, would this creation of the model that you would get back from your stored procedure, plus the stored procedure call, would that be more work than changing all of your stored procedures to C sharp? So instead of this being update manufacturer product code called a stored procedure, you extract all of the logic from the stored procedure and write it as your ORM's call. So in this case, it would be something like this dot, even though we don't need to use this, but I'm just trying to be explicit about it. Manufacture products dot where where ID equals man ID. Be first or default. And then you do your update operation on it, and then you save the changes back to the database. So this essentially replaces the stored procedure. So all of the logic in here would be the logic for that stored procedure. And my guess is setting it up like this might be less work than trying to convert all of the existing stored procedures to C sharp. However, for any new logic, any new database operations, you could argue that they're only used for this app. We should be able to write that in C sharp directly against the tables. And in EF7, the thing that I demoed is going to be very different. Yeah. So only take this for EF6 for now. But for the C sharp to work, the account needs access to select. Right. Yeah. And so that's why I'm like, if you evaluate, I should read this whole thing first. For the C sharp to work, the account needs access to select from tables, and the request for that access is when I will be told to write a stored procedure in a specific schema, and they'll give access to the package that contains the stored procedure. Right. Okay. And that's where if you first evaluate how much work it would be to maintain the stored procedure versus write out the query that you're wanting to do using C sharp, that might be a starting point for your argument. Then maintainability would be another good argument to have. And by argument, you know that I mean just a statement to pose as here's a good reason for using C sharp table direct access versus stored procedures and trying to pass in SQL parameters, because you get the same kind of protection when you're writing your own SQL of using SQL parameters. So that still guards against SQL injection, just like it would if you were doing a stored procedure, because you could mess up when you're doing your stored procedure and just have. Although I think this turns them into parameters when you're doing it in set of. But here we have a product code that might be entered by the user or has some way to get hijacked by the user, and it could pass in any value here. So that might be a string that terminates itself, and they do their SQL injection that way. Oh, and then you wouldn't have this if you did it this way. But I'd be interested in looking into EF7 to find out what it could do. And again, I'm only familiar with Entity Framework. I haven't used Dapper at all. But from what I have heard, you write your own SQL. You don't actually use objects the way that you do in Entity Framework, where you use Lambda expressions with predicates. And and all of that fun stuff. All right, I just got an email from the accessibility person because I missed one small thing when I was doing the narrator changes. And we were waiting for them to review it and get back with us. And somehow I missed setting an ID to the correct ID. So when I was telling it to do labeled by this element with this ID, it was actually pointing to the very first element every time. So every single button had the same narrator labeled by value. But I fixed it this morning, and it's in our release, or it's going to be in our release. We're releasing tomorrow, so happy about that. And then we have already been working on the features for the next release and some cleanup and some fixes. And I completely missed a follow. Thank you, R. Stendelin. R. Stendelin. Hopefully I pronounced that somewhere close. If not, I truly apologize. I need to make this bigger. Yeah, absolutely. So it has taught me a ton of stuff. Like, semantic tags are fantastic for just providing that nice structure when using narrator because you get that for free. Then using minuscule, like it's not even so much that you're going out of your way. It really is super simple to just add a few ARIA tags, like ARIA labeled bys for buttons and inputs, provided they aren't already associated with each other. Because if they're associated, then it knows. Um, but ARIA labeled by for like buttons that don't have any textual display, like it's an icon button, for example, just putting an ARIA labeled by in it works perfectly. So nice. So as far as narrator is concerned, it's really, really easy to set up your document. Work with screen readers. Okay, so back to the project that we've been working on, as I mentioned at the top, and as Dukasoft has already posted, it is the financial management tracking application. And this application is intended for you to be able to track your own financial spending and savings for your personal accounts. It's intended to be for personal accounts. And for you to do everything manually, there is very little automation other than dumping stuff to the database for you, summing stuff up. You know, the typical things. It doesn't like go out to your accounts, hook up to your accounts and pull in the information from them or anything. It is just there for you to type in your own values. And that's really what I prefer. I like to have to type in my spending and savings so that I keep an eye on it and that I see it. And I'm currently doing this using an Access database thing hybrid application where it's using SQL Server. But I'm using Microsoft Access to do the UI essentially. I have a form with 3 tabs that has essentially the same types of inputs. And I'm like, you know what? I know how to use Blazor. Why don't we just turn this into a Blazor app already? So the thing that we've been working on the most lately has been getting this edit functionality to work. We actually got it to save a new line item or an edited record, I guess. And the problem is that it deleted the existing line item. So we're going to debug that now and find out what's going on with that. So we need to get back to our transaction service on the server and find out why this thing is deleting the payment detail after we've updated the record. So it's my guess is it's in this patch where we aren't keeping the existing payment detail records and we're only keeping the new ones and not the existing ones. So we're probably going to want to launch this with the debugger attached. And I'm pretty sure I have the Blazor server. Yep, set as my startup if I push F5. You guys don't need to see me tearing apart my lip. It's so dry. Colorado is just so flippin' dry. Miss the rain. Okay, we are going to buzz twice. Yes, yes, we know. That's weird. My phone buzzed again for the same email that I already received. Anyway, whatever. We're going to add a new line item. Oh, because I did get a new email. Wait, why did they're throwing me off? Anyway, we had a 50 monetary units purchase from my local grocer, and we got a fee of 10.25 monetary units. So we're trying to re-add our subtotal to this transaction. And so what we are looking for is, do we have both of our payments? We have the 10.25 one that has an existing ID. And then we have the new one that we're trying to add that does not have an ID. Neither of them have line item. Oh, I'm so blind. Where is our related line item type? Oh, these are the view models. That's why. That's fine. These are not the data models. So we have our existing record that has payment details. There's only one in there, and that's the one that will match on 1033. So we are going to patch that. And the thing that we should see in our payment patch is for every transaction that doesn't already exist, which is where the transaction or the line item's ID is equal to 0, then those are going to be added. And then any existing ones are where the line items already exist in the list of payment details, which is currently null. Okay, so we need to make it here. So existing line items, there's only one, and it has an ID of 1033. We should have payment details, which are the line items to entity model. So there should be two of those. The first one has the ID of 1033 with a line item type ID of 3. And then the second one, oh my gosh, brain, catch up. and then a second one with an ID of 0, which is our new subtotal line item type. And so that one will be the one to add, the one with an ID of 0, and then the one to update will be the one with the line item of 1033, and there were no line items. What? Why are you doing it that way? To array. Are we selecting IDs to be removed? We're selecting the actual objects. I'm not exactly sure why I'm doing to array, but I am. And so what we're doing is for every line item to be added, we are adding it to the payment details for the current transaction's payment record. There is one. For any of them to remove, we remove them. There are none. And then for any of them to update, we are using patch. And patch, I believe, is an overload that we wrote ourselves. So we're going to have to step into that. And then we're adding a new line item type in the amount of 1025 and nothing for detail. And that should be the only thing that we do. So now we are returning the patched record, which was actually an in-place patch. So now we should have two line items, two payment details. One that's going to be an update to the existing, and the other that is going to be a new. And so if we look at our DB context, for example, which is here, then we should see some changes in our change tracker. Entities. Change detector. I am looking for entities. Is entities no longer a thing? I thought that the change tracker had entities. Well, anyway, we have a debug view, so hopefully this was intended for us to be able to read and see what changes are there. Why are there so many items? The account is remaining unchanged. The lookup account type is remaining unchanged. The lookup item type is remaining unchanged. Payee, payment. No changes to the existing record. Where is the new record? Is that what this second thing is? And this is also odd. I was thinking that the line item type itself was the thing that was breaking, and it's telling me that it can't find it in the database like it's a new record. And that could be because when we did the patch and we updated that line item type, we didn't give it the ID, but we did give it the ID. Wait, that's the payment. Where is the line item type? Yeah, line item type has an ID of 3, which is a fee, which is the existing record. So I'm not exactly sure why it didn't find it, but apparently I am still needing to tell it to empty out so it doesn't think we're trying to update that record, because otherwise it's going to say that or add a new record. Otherwise it's going to say there's a conflict. There's an existing key. Okay, So exist record, payment details. We still have one new record. We need the payment ID. Do we need to populate the payment ID? Since it's a child of a payment entity, I think it's going to automatically populate that for us. I mean, it has to because it worked before. But the first one, I'm not exactly sure. Oh, we need to do the same for the payment object of the payment details. Let's see if this works. No. How is that a rude edit? No. Whatever. Do, 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 do. Smedgy veils. Edge. Gold. Okay, let's make it back to where we were. So now, oh, we don't need this currently or this. Okay, so now the thing that we're trying to save is exist record. Payment details. All right, and now we don't have the associated payment record, so it's not going to try to update the payment in some kind of loopy weird way. So while we're waiting, or while we're preparing to see this, I'm going to open up the SQL Explorer, and I believe we're using LocalDB. Financial management. Which one of you guys? Um, Finance man. Helpful. So we're going to look at payment details for payment ID 3. I'm pretty sure it's what we're looking at. Exist record, payment ID 3. And we're going to see if it deletes this record and adds a new one, or if it keeps this record and only adds a new one. It would be really nice if it keeps this record and adds a new one. It'd be really, really nice. So let's step. We're not going to see anything in the database yet because we haven't committed the transaction. And so now we have committed the transaction, refresh, and it deleted the record and added this one. Why? Why would it delete the existing record? We should be able to see it in our exist record. It only has one payment detail. And that's weird because right before it's saved, it definitely had the two payment details. And not only that, but it certainly populated the payment ID correctly. And it gave us a new ID. Why would it do that? So if I refresh, then we'll see that it's now at 50 monetary units. Okay, let's get back to that point. So currently we have one record, which is the existing 50 monetary units record. We patch it, and we now have two records, which is the new 2.25 monetary units fee and the existing 50 monetary units line item. When we get here just before saving changes, that entity has two payment details: 50 existing record, 2.25 new record. Our context dot change tracker has do any of you guys say removed? So this is the existing record and it says unchanged. But I'm not seeing the new record in this view, at least. It could just be that that's how this thing prints out. But the existing record is definitely still there, according to the change tracker. What else can we see in you? Why aren't you showing a new record? That's what we're doing right here. Oh, 7, there it is, entries. I was looking for this. Okay, so the debug view really is just our entries in a readable format. So this is our existing record, and I am not seeing the new record. And yet what we're left with after we save is only the new record in payment details. Sumimasen, why are you deleting the existing record? Context.change tracker dot has changes. is true. Why would my context change tracker? Never mind. I have the answer. Thank you, Dukasoft. Dukasoft says that it's because EF Core says too complicated. Just gonna delete it and move on. No, it can't be because of this, because it was happening before I even had this statement in there. And the only thing that matters is having the payment ID. Just for shiggles and gits. This is what works by convention means. Um, it's terrible. We're going to try setting each of the context.entry cur payment detail dot state equals, and then depending on if it's a new entry or an existing pentry, we will mark it as either added or modified. Even though added is already working, but still, I'm going to explicitly set it. So we're going to say if the cur payment detail ID is 0, then it is a new record. Else it is a modified record, even though it's possible that there were no changes to the actual entity itself. I know. I know, friend. And if this works, I really don't know what that means. Okay. An unexpected error occurred while saving the deposit. And I bet you this is going to be similar to what Deflux was getting, which is that I didn't see it in the output here, but I'm not looking at output, which is that the thing that we're trying to mark as modified, most likely, is already being tracked as removed. And so the statement is cannot modify an enumeration. Oops. Oops. But how is that? How does that? We're not modifying the payment detail. We're modifying the DB context change tracker. Okay, well, one easy fix is to enumerate, is to materialize this into a list so that we aren't modifying the I collection. And we know that payment is not null. Actually, we don't know that payment is not null. Sorry, this is only going to work for payments. So let me put in a guard there real quick, even though it's going to have me rebuild again. If exist record payment is not null, then we know we're working with a payment record and we can do this. This is so dumb. What I am not understanding, other than all of it. Sales tax. Mixing it up. Mixing it up. Wait, not what I'm trying to do. Oh, 5. Wow, my fingers were in the wrong place for that, but whatever. That is a lot of sales tax. I don't need this anymore. Okay, so that one allowed me to mark them as added or modified. And so now, if we check the table, we still have the 50 monetary unit record. And what we're hoping for is to have 2 records, line item type 1, line item type 3, or whatever sales tax is, probably 2. And the answer is we have 2 records. Okay, so what does that mean? What is the underlying cause for it to remove the existing payment detail item unless I manually set it as modified? I don't know. It means that the entity that we are patching with for the existing record during this patch step for payment entry, this one here, is not being tracked by the database by the time we do this patch. It doesn't make sense because we're tracking the entire payment record and we are including the navigation properties up here. Transaction query. Where we are including the payment details, and the line item types. It's so confusing. Well, if transaction entry service, oh, it was in the same file. Great, and now I won't be able to go back. Gosh, what if, I think we were getting an error if I didn't clear out payment and line item type. Because it's trying to add a new payment or line item type with the same key. We don't explicitly say use whatever's in the navigation property ID. Here it is. The instance of entity type lookup line item type cannot be tracked because another instance with the same key is being tracked already. When attaching existing entities, ensure that only one entity instance with a given key value is attached. Yeah, and so what might actually be happening is, nope, I don't know, because they are using different IDs. I'm so confused. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. Exactly. It's just weird because the line item type properties for each of the payment details will be different because they are not the same. Wait, no, this is a first or default, so this materializes because none of the payment details are the same, have the same line item type. One is subtotal, one is tax, one is fee. However, it is possible in the future that you would have multiple line items with the same type. Like, let's say you're actually tracking locality tax versus sales tax versus um, county tax versus state tax. So you would have multiple tax line item types, and then their specific sales, state, whatever. Hmm. I really don't want to leave this in. This doesn't feel like it's the right logic. Because then I'll need to do this for each of them. Deposit. Then I think we saw that there were two. And it's not a for each because there's only one related deposit record. So exist record dot deposit dot deposit reason, which is the lookup, needs to be cleared out. Was there another one? Deposit reason. No, that's the only one. And then for transfer, it's target account. Oh, and payment. And payment in all cases. Deposit in this case. Gosh. Not deposit. You're actually not associated with your parent. Oh, you're associated directly with transaction. But we didn't need to do that for the other one. I don't know. I don't know. Europeans. Prices in the US are so much lower. Me in the US. Price not equals cost to buy. Right. Don't forget to add all of the fees, shipping, and taxes. Else if? And I'm doing an else if because it's still possible that the transfer object might be null. So we're explicitly checking for a transfer object. And your target account. Okay, so this should now work for all of our, oh, and tips, especially if you're doing stuff like food service or grocery delivery service. Whereas in most European countries, tips are already factored into your bill. Most European countries, he says. In a handful of European countries that I know about, such as in France and the UK, tips are already factored into your bill. Actually, I don't even know if that's true for the UK. But I watch Emily in Paris, So I know that it's true for France. What? All right, let's try a checking to credit card. So this should be a transfer, and it comes up as a transfer. And we're actually going to change the amount to 150 monetary units. And there's an error. I thought we took care of that, man. The association between entity types, accounts, and transfers has been severed. You, 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 what? But the relationship is marked as either required or implicitly required because foreign key is not nullable. Which is true, but we aren't deleting the foreign key. We aren't removing target account ID. We're removing target account. Gosh, man. What's going on? What? What? So our transfer record has a target account ID of 3, and if we remove target account, we still have a target account ID of 3, which means that we are not violating the foreign key constraint. But according to this, we are. And if we just don't do that, will it actually save for us? Like, is the only one that we have to care about the child list of items inside of current payment, inside of payment, whatever words. Did you not rebuild? It did. Weird. 126.32 monetary units, please. Do you save? It saves. It saves like it's supposed to. Okay. And if we look down here, we now have 126.32. We have a credit charge change amount of, oh, we wouldn't have seen it because it's no longer pending. But it would have shown up here. Shown up. So finally, we need to do a deposit, which would be something like. I don't have any deposits other than my starting balances. Well, let's modify the starting balance for our checking to be 10,000 monetary units less. That looks like it was successful. Okay, so the only thing that is missing is having the dialog close itself when the transaction is successful. But because Dukasoft is here, I am reminded that we made the change needed to get this logic to work. And it is working the way that we want it to. So I should do a commit, which he usually reminds me of, but just by nature of him being here, I remembered. Updated. Wait, did we actually? Woo, the lion commits. Or we must acquit. Right, we updated the edit forms to use the underlying passed in property. That's one thing. Instead of using a clone, we did the clone in the edit transaction modal. Right here. And then we completed the edit logic. And these really should have been 3 separate commits. And in fact, they are going to be 3 separate commits. They're going to be whatever. Completed edit logic. They really should have been 3 separate commits though. I was trying to just stage this, but I don't think that I can stage this without the changes that we made to edit transaction as well. Yeah, I can. Yes, I can. Stage this. Why is program.cs changed? I don't recall. Commit staged. Pasta number 2. But this one also does contain the edit transaction stuff too. So we'll go ahead and mark that as done. Which means we may as well just do the rest. What happened here? We can definitely get rid of that. That was from when I was explaining earlier, mansplaining earlier. What a jerk. Right, we added some, dang it. We added some missing things to our dependency injection container. Why didn't you let me? Not you. You. Stage. Commit. And finally, added missing DI. Missing items to DI container. Commit. Okay, so we are now committed. Should have done that more earlier. And the last thing to do is to get the modal to dismiss itself on successful save. Successful update, successful. I have hair. Edit transaction modal. Code behind. If it was an error, do nothing, just refresh so that the error can show. Otherwise, patch. Oh, right. If we were successful, patch the current transaction, tell transaction state to tell everyone that is listening that transactions have changed so that they can refresh their stuff. For example, the transaction history grid and the, what is this behind you? Account summary. Then we are setting show to false and we're doing the two-way bind so that show dismisses itself. So what is your parent container? Your parent container is the transaction history row, which is going to be in here. Right, because we have this render row. And it's here. And we are at binding show to show edit dialog. It's working for confirm delete though. I'm sorry, Digabot. You don't get any more Valentines. We'll get you something better. Never mind. You get it. The database says I will not remove that. Oh, you know what? It's not running. So, of course, it's going to fail to fetch. Anyway, saved by the database, Digabot. You get to keep your Valentines. It was a system I have in place to protect all of your goods and wares for Valentine's. Okay, let's try this again. Instead, we are going to delete the purchase we made to the English store. Yeah, so that dialog goes away. And that's this one here. And we're just using @bind show, and on confirm clicked is invoke async status changed. And we're doing exactly the same thing for edit transect. Oh, hello, Rocky Mountain Arsenal. Confirm, which is this. On confirm clicked does have delegate. On confirm clicked, invoke async. +1 overload. Let me guess, you take the cancellation token? No, you take an arg. But it doesn't take an arg, so we're fine. So this thing here should be the thing that tells the modal, the templated question modal, to dismiss. Is there something different about the confirm delete modal? @bind show, on confirm clicked. If it was error, don't do anything. Otherwise, show equals false. Oh, it does show changed first and then on confirm click. That might be what's happening. We're changing the value of the Boolean that drives that modal after doing the state has changed. So I'm sure if we just change that order, that is going to work for us. Man, all of these changes seem like normal changes, but they're all being treated as rude edits. I don't get it. Did you refresh already? I think it refreshed. Okay. Refresh again, because it's still showing English store, which might mean that the delete didn't actually work. That's bad. We aren't done with edit. We need to be able to delete line items as well. I forgot about that. So we just added a new fee update, and there it goes. It went away. This does look like a new amount. I wasn't paying attention. But yes, it is the new amount, 79, 76.98. Um, why aren't you actually deleting from the database? That's not actually deleting from the database. Okay, we have two things to fix. So first, we commit the fix for modal not dismissing after successful update. Local. Don't delete from the mama base. All right. The next thing is to debug why delete is not deleting. Want to be something dumb like I'm not committing the transaction. Oh, hush phone. Oh, it is deleting from the database. I mean, it's not deleting from the database, it is purging, setting a purge date. 8675309. That's too many eyes. I and R and Yarg. Meeting canceled. I have one less meeting today, which puts me at what, 30? Kidding. It's not that many. It's only 28. Ooh. And also, you guys don't need to know this, but I thought that this was pretty impressive. Our electricity bill for last month was 28 bucks. 28. That is crazy. We have solar panels, and if we can get those paid off, oh man, that's going to be really nice. Okay, so what I think is happening is that our transaction history grid is not filtering out records with purge dates. We can verify that by going to the transaction history row. Nope. Going to transaction history grid. X dot purge. Do I not have a purge date in the view model? Purge has been purged. All right, thanks DC Aggie for hanging out with us and lurking during your luncheon. I hope you enjoy the foods and that it's super duper tasty for you. Maybe we'll just do it in the getter. So let's update our get transactions plural, to have a new parameter. Will include include pending delete, include, because they're not purged yet, they are marked for purge. Include marked as Purge, perch. I don't know what to put, and I want it to be after date. We're gonna have it false by default. You're gonna stay as queryable, and I'll go ahead and add it to this. And either not, oh, since it's an either not include marked as purged, either include marked as purged or not. Oh wait, we don't even need the not in this one. We'll just do x dot purge date has value, not x purge date has value. That can be on the same line. So what this will do for us is we'll get all of our transaction records where we have an actual deposit, payment, or transfer related table. Include name it later. Or and we are either asking for every type of record, including those that are marked as purged, or we are not asking for those that are marked as purged, but the record does not have a purge date. Yes, that should do it for us. Oh, that's going to fail. We need to update it everywhere. So we added a new parameter to bool include mark as purge. I still have the build fail sound apparently. I forgot to turn that off. I'm kidding. I love it. I love that sound. It's hilarious. I grew up on Wheel of Fortune. Well, my parents watching Wheel of Fortune. Very, very nostalgic. Okay, since we updated the interface now, we need to update the other implementing class, which is the client side one, to accept. Ooh, do it for me. Yes. Thank you, Copilot. Although IntelliCode would have done that too. Actually, you know what? I think that one might have been just the refactoring by itself, not even Copilot or IntelliCode. Okay. And I guess we can just always have it here. So include marked purged, which is an imp, obviously, is going to be the value that is passed in as include marked as purged. And so our controller now, so many places, our controller now should accept a query string parameter in our API. In all of our APIs, dang it, for include marked as purged. I'm going to copy that. We're going to update this method. Call, method call is what I said. Payments. Shame. Do it. Tab. Do it. Tab. I'm tabbing to win. You tab. You tab. We won. We won. Okay, so now we should just be able to check the table, and it should no longer show records that are marked as purged. IntelliTab Pilot. Pretty soon it'll be IntelliTab Pilot GPT. And we no longer have my English store purchase. So let's get rid of the grocer purchase. We'll give back the food that we didn't use. And it's gone, just like that. And if I refresh, it's still gone. Fixed. Okay, one more piece of functionality to do before we can call the edit transaction done, and that was to be able to remove line items. Remove or edit line items. Man. Okay, anyway, updated logic for displaying transactions marked for purge. Local commit. Okay, so finally, the logic for a edit transaction modal, deposit entry, payment entry, the table for line items. It looks like it should be this, but this doesn't look right. This is the table for line items. Okay, so let's turn this into a component first. That'll be the very first thing to do. And where have I been putting all of my partial components? I don't have any of those split out. So I'll just go ahead and put it in the same folder because it is part of the data entry components. It's the item with all the lines. Duh. And I'm going to try Nerdherder's little tips and tricks that he showed us in Discord. And we're going to do the line. Nope. It's going to be called transaction details. Transaction detail. I don't like it being called transaction details. It has to be called payment details because it is specific to payment detail line items. Payment details table. And we want both. Oh, which syntax is it? Is it a parentheses? I think it's a parentheses. Both .razor and .razor.cs. Awesome. So I had been just copy pasting and putting a comma in between them, but you can use a parentheses and put as many extensions and partial class. Oh, it's so cool. That's awesome. Thank you, Nerdherder, for that. Since this is the code behind for the .razor file, it needs to be a partial class. This is going to take a, what do we want? I think I want the full transaction. I think I want the full payment. Yes, we're going to take the full payment, not the payment, not the line items themselves. So parameter public payment entry view model, and you'll notice that I'm doing this specifically for the payment entry. It's just payment. Oh, no, that's right. And not any other kind of transaction. So all of the other transaction stuff that I have done has been generic. So I would have an of type T where T is an I transaction data entry view model has new blah 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 all of that stuff. But here I really want to constrain it to just the payment type of transaction. Then protected override. Actually, we don't need anything yet. We're just going to create a whole bunch of payment detail rows. So let's create a new project, obviously, Shift F2, payment detail row. Same, .razor.cs. That's so cool. I love that. Oh, why did you create there though? Why did it put the whatever? Doesn't matter. Yes, yes. Namespace, please. Make you a public partial. Okie dokie. So this is going to take parameter, public, line item, view model. I don't think it's called line item view model. It's called a payment detail. So why are you still called line item view model extensions? Payment detail view model extensions. Whatever. Payment detail extensions is good enough because it's both payment detail entity and payment detail view model. Okay, so payment detail view model required. My goodness, what am I trying to type? Not nullable default. I mean, null forgiveness default. We know that it's required. Oh, right. I think I've been using required this whole time. So I need to update that here. Alternatively, you can create your page and then create a code block. Then you can use a light bulb. And no. It's perfect. I love this. Don't apologize for wanting to share information. I encourage this. Please do. Anyway, then you can click the light bulb and create the code behind. So what I typically do myself is I only create the .razor file, and then if I need something small like only one parameter, I usually just leave that with the .razor file in the code block. Then if it gets more complicated, I create the code behind file in the way that you said. I use the light bulb refactor tool to generate the code behind file. But I wanted to try out NerdHerder's little add new file tip, and it was fun. But your way is absolutely valid, and I prefer doing it that way myself because I don't always need the code behind file to be anything massive. But since I know that my payment detail is going to have edit functionality, then I know that I'm going to have more methods and stuff. Okay, so let's just steal the UI from our payment data entry. We are eventually going to replace this with our, and I'm going to go ahead and take the whole div with it. Am I? No, I'm not. Payment details table, passing in the payment record, and the payment record is going to be the edit payment. And then this is going to get moved into the component that we just created, called payment detail table, where all of our edit payments are now just payment. Where is line item types coming from? Line item types is the lookup list. And we need the lookup list so that we can get the actual value text or display text for the given line item. So we will need that, which we are going to use our lookup list state, same way that we're getting it here. And so here's the first thing that we're getting. We will go ahead and await initialize. And I may as well grab this too while I'm here. Copy. So your code behind pasta, which means that we also need, whoops, I could have grabbed this too. Inject a private lookup list state. Nice. Can we use required on injects? I think you can. Maybe. Cannot be less. Oh, when you have private. Required members cannot be less visible than the containing class. Okay. Okay. Now we know. And what I think I want to do, just in case, is to go ahead and initialize this to a new list, because it's possible that we'll populate the It's unlikely, but it is still going to be possible that we'll populate the payment details table before finishing the initialize for the lookup lists. And this is going to get moved anyway, now that I think of it, into the line items themselves. The line item rows. Yeah, required is all about the constructor. And so if you don't have a way, like it doesn't understand that this inject statement, even though I'm using private, will get populated by the dependency injector, and this will not be null, provided, I have something to populate I lookup list state with in my DI container. Oh, and because, well, like I said, this is going to get moved. So once we move it, we will also add oh, that should be fine. We'll just wait, invoke async state has changed here. I was going to say, if we were hooked up to any of the lookup list state.property changes or property changed, then we would need a dispose as well. I got words today. I can actually speak. Okay, so then for each line item, we would like a payment detail row for that line item. And so this markup is going into our payment detail row. And now we're going to have an issue with underscore line item types. But first, cur line item will be payment detail. So now is the question, where do I go ahead and grab a new reference every single time? And I think the answer that I want to say is yes, I do. Okay, so you, you. What? Image detail row, code behind for Dieu. I'll pasta you up here and then move you down here. Yatta! Okay, so this should square us away for our line item types. Thank you. We are saying that line item by this point will not be null, which is why I went ahead and initialized it. And we actually don't need this anymore because I am not marking it as nullable. And then, yes, we will have a call to initialize every single time. And by initialize, I mean initialize async every single time. But our logic for initialize async says if it's already initialized, don't do anything. So this is essentially just kind of a one cycle step at that point in time. All right. So with that, we shouldn't have, there are some things that would have broken. Our payment entry has some CSS that targets the line item stuff. So we have the transaction details div that is surrounding it. Right here. It's right. Oh my gosh, I'm so blind. Right here. We have the transaction details div that is surrounding this, but in order to target any of the elements inside of this component, we now need to use ::deep, or, that's a tough one. Do I really want to keep the CSS for this table in here? Or do I want to move it into the actual table component? I think we know the answer to that. It belongs with the component. Payment details table razor sass. Don't give me no sass and keep your sass to yourself. Okay, so our T head belongs with this component, but all of our child TRs, so that's going to be a TR and : deep TR, and all of their TDs and everything will have these styles applied to it. So we need to use the : deep here as well, because our payment detail row needs to be styled, which is its own child component of the table, of the payment details table. Yes, so we're good. So now we shouldn't see any visual change in our UI, which is right here. Why is there a visual change in our UI? Why aren't my, oh, because I forgot to compile. Yeah, deep means applied to children as well. So if I had kept the CSS in the payment entry isolated CSS, so if this was still here, and I use deep here, even though the payment detail rows are a subcomponent of the payment details table, these styles would still apply to payment detail row. So you only need one : deep for the child element and any children of that child element, child component as well. And then if you're asking, another thing I thought, if you're asking about whether this colon colon deep will also apply to the child elements that are defined in the CSS, it will because I'm using Sass and you can do nested CSS like this. And what it will output, which is what I forgot to do, there's two things I forgot to do. Compile this Sass into CSS, which it's doing right now. So the output is going to be one rule for each item. The combination of how you would traverse this thing. So there's tr td, tr th, colon colon deep, tr td, colon colon deep, tr th. And so that's what all, oh, and then table on the outside of all of those. And that's what this reflects. So the CSS is still not nested, if that also answers your question. Okie dokie. So now the table looks the way it's supposed to. I said that there were two things that I missed, and apparently I didn't need to do the second thing. The two things that I thought were going to be broken were I added a new isolated CSS file, and usually the hot reload doesn't take the new CSS files for those isolated CSS component files things. So that was really surprising. I'm okay with this though. I'm not going to complain about it. So, awesome. Thank you so much for the follow. Why aren't you showing up over here? Show up over here. Guy Nanigans. Awesome. I have a little monitor down here that I use to see the actual follows because my OBS is super duper tiny to me. I'm blind. And I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Reading up on C# 11, yes. Yeah, so I've been trying to use some of the new features from C# 11. I haven't used very many of them because I haven't been able to keep up with it. I'm so very busy lately, but I really, really want to. So if you do see anywhere where I could use a C# 11 feature, please feel free to let me know. I will not be offended. Not one bit. Ten was just here. It was. But I don't mind it. Because, like, all of the things that they're doing are adding, which I'm appreciating a lot. Okay. So here's what we need. And we'll probably need to save this for the next stream since we're getting pretty close to the end. But we need to add control buttons to edit, delete line items. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Marcus says it's hard to keep up when everything changes every year. Yeah, we get a new version of .NET every 16 months. I forget what the total number of months is between releases. It's pretty much every year. In short, it's every year. But yeah, I do really appreciate you being here. Hopefully I said your name okay. If you want me to call you something else, then you can tell me, but I'll probably forget. Not on purpose, of course. Not on purpose. I will do my best to remember. But yeah, what we're gonna do next time is Well, it's going to be Community Day. Ooh, you're on a Mac too. So that changes even more often because I don't know. I don't know what the experience is like. I've just heard that it's still kind of rough. It's getting better, just getting kind of rough. But anyway, I'm going to go to this screen. Normally on Fridays, which is when I'm going to stream again, this Friday, same bat time, same bat place, we do Community Day where I invite people to hop into our Discord if you feel like it and discuss some technology type topics with us and just have overall fun. But I will also try to work on finishing up this little bit of logic because it's the very last thing that we need to finish the current issue that we're working on. It's awful because of Apple Silicon. Hush you. Um, I know that I'm ending just a little bit early. We could go the whole time, but I'm kind of eager to get back to the project, my actual work project, because we are releasing tomorrow, which means there's nothing that's going to change in the current code base, but I'm already working on the next release's features, and they have been a ton of fun to work on. And gosh, I just love it. I love it a lot. So if you feel like it, I'm going to raid out to someone that I don't think I've raided before, but I'm almost always lurking on his channel when he's streaming. We will raid out to a guy named Clayman. He is a Unity developer working on a game called Epic Hero game. Clayman Dev. And he most likely won't be expecting this, but definitely feel free to hang out if you are interested in that kind of content. If not, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day wherever you happen to be. I'll be lurking on his stream and Code Rad's stream, and later on, if he streams, Irish John Games' stream. And then if I happen to see any of our other community streamers streaming, I'll hang out on their channels too. But yeah, um, that's what I got going on. So I will post this video to YouTube no earlier than 24 hours after I end the stream. So if you missed most of it and you are interested in seeing it, it'll be on YouTube. The entire series is on YouTube. A lot of it is fluff. I talked with a guy named Jesse Weigel, who I really, really, really appreciated back in the day. He used to stream often. He was the one that got me into streaming. He may show up on Friday, but he got me into AutoGPT. So I may try to get AutoGPT to create timestamps for all of my YouTube videos so that I can use them. But yeah, other than that, I'll catch you when I catch you. Whenever I see you again, I'll stream again on Friday, 10:30 a.m. Mountain Time. Other than that, ciao for the now while the countdown goes down.